Welcome back to Right Dude Reviews. I am the Right Dude. Well, to anyone who knows me personally, it's no secret that I am a massive anime fan. Yes, insert your weeb comments here. And this is especially apparent with Studio Ghibli. Studio Ghibli is one of, if not my favorite animation studio of all time. And even if their films don't always work out, there is still 90% of their films that still hold up very well and are worth checking out. It is all thanks to this guy, Hayao Miyazaki, the founder of Studio Ghibli. Now, in honor of The Boy and the Heron coming out in North America, that is, I decided to make my top 10 favorite Studio Ghibli films of all time. A couple things before I start. Number one, there will be some Studio Ghibli films on this list that were not made by Miyazaki himself. So don't assume every entry is a Miyazaki film, since there are still some great films that were directed by other well-known animation directors that are worth mentioning. And number two, this is just my personal opinion and my personal list. So if you don't agree with me, that's totally fine. In fact, tell me what some of your favorite Studio Ghibli films are down in the comments below. With all that being out of the way, let's get started. I know many people would put this on the lower half of their Studio Ghibli list, but not me. The Wind Rises is a wonderful and touching Studio Ghibli film, which is based on a book that I have never read, and is loosely based on the story of Jiro Horikoshi, the designer of the Mitsubishi A6M0, a fighter plane that was fought during World War II. Without spoiling anything, the ending is very heartbreaking to see Horikoshi, who wanted to make his dreams and crafts into something special. However, it was taken from him and used for completely different purposes. Not to mention, I love the relationship he had with his wife, Nehoko Satome, and the voice actors including Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Emily Blunt do a great job in carrying that relationship. I was told that the film is historically inaccurate, and while I can't say much on the matter since I don't really know a whole lot about the true story, what I can say is that just because a film is historically inaccurate, that doesn't automatically make it bad. Hell, Alexander was considered historically accurate, and that film sucked. If it could stand on its own as a movie, then it did its job. Historical accuracy be damned. Of course, the animation is wonderful to look at, and the score is beautiful. In fact, my only issue that prevents it from being higher on this list is that the pacing could have been smoothed out just a little bit more. Not saying the pacing was bad or anything, but it got a little slow at times for me, and I feel like it could have been smoothed out just a little bit more. However, despite that, this is one Miyazaki film worth checking out. Okay, so most of Studio Ghibli films are known for being upbeat, whimsical, and happy-go-lucky. Unfortunately, that is not the case for Grave of the Fireflies. Now, that doesn't automatically make it bad. I mean, it's on my list after all. It's still a fantastic film and a well-made film. However, it's best you go into this movie with the right mindset, since this is the darkest and most depressing Studio Ghibli film I have ever seen, as well as one of the most depressing movies I have seen, period. I really can't say much without spoiling the movie, but just know that going into it. It's directed by Isao Takahata, who directed some great non-Miyazaki Studio Ghibli films, which some of them you will see later on this list. The animation and musical score are great. It gives that depressing tone and look into the aftermath of World War II, showing that no matter what side you are on, it's the people that pay the ultimate price. I love the relationship between Saito and his younger sister, Setsuko. You deeply care for these two and feel awful for the bad hardships that they have to endure. No joke, I don't cry a whole lot in movies, but for this one, it was impossible for me not to cry. I will say at least give this film a watch, but just know what you're getting yourself into and make sure you have some Kleenex on standby. Transitioning from one Isao Takahata film to another. Only Yesterday is a very sweet and charming slice of life film. It's a film about growing up, finding yourself in the world, and just living life. It doesn't follow a straightforward narrative structure like most animated films do because it jumps from present day to flashbacks of Tako Akajima at the age of 11. Only Yesterday is a very sweet and charming slice of life film. It's a film about growing up, finding yourself in the world, and just living life. It doesn't follow a straightforward narrative structure like most animated films do because it jumps from present day to flashbacks of Tako Akajima at the age of 11. Tako in the present works for a company in Tokyo and takes a trip to the countryside where she reflects certain moments of her youth. Most of the time, they are memories that don't add a whole lot, like Taco never being good at math, her possibly being in the showbiz, or her not liking hand-me-downs. Taco is contrasting her youth with her adulthood and trying to find out where she is in the world. The animation is spectacular as always, and this film is just worth checking out, especially if you're someone who is trying to find your own place in the world. My Neighbor Totoro is considered a classic among the Studio Ghibli fan base, and honestly, I could see why. This is a very touching and heartwarming film about two little girls named Sasuke and Mei who live with their father and mother, the latter remaining at the hospital, and encounter a spirit named Totoro. That may not sound much for a kids movie, but in the 80s it really works. It has that mystical and magical feeling of a kids movie from that era. The characters are very likable, especially the two kids. Usually, when it comes to kids' movies, kid actors can come across as very annoying and don't act like real kids. Totoro is very cute, and I could see why he was the mascot for Studio Ghibli, as well as being one of the most recognizable characters from any kids' movie. Hell, he even made an appearance in the Toy Story movies. My only complaint is that I wish we got to see more of Totoro, but that's probably more of a nitpick than anything, to be honest. The animation is still very impressive, even for 1988 standards. The score is wonderful. It's just overall a fantastic movie. If you want a movie for your kids to watch that's not Disney related, I'd say give this one a watch. Just like with My Neighbor Totoro, Kiki's Delivery Service is also considered an absolute classic among the Studio Ghibli fan base. And there's a good reason for that. A heartwarming, sweet, and just a fun adventure film for kids. Even though I didn't grow up watching this as a kid, I certainly wish I did because I would have absolutely loved it. The animation is just gorgeous, especially for 1989 standards. Yeah, some parts do look kind of dated, but it still looks impressive regardless. The voice acting is magnificent. Kristen Dunst does a great job as playing the young Kiki since she did voice the character when she was in her teenage years. Phil Hartman, may he rest in peace, also did a great job voicing the black cat Gigi. This film is dedicated to his memory. Also, Matthew Lawrence, may he also rest in peace, did a great job as the nerdy kid who dreams of flying, Tombo. Also like the themes of maturity and how kids are eventually going to grow up and get out into the world. I find it to be a very smart and clever kids movie. In a world where kids movies are reduced to junk food entertainment, it's nice to see a film to treat its audience in a smart and mature way. Honestly, I have very little to complain about this movie. It is a clever and mature film that all kids must watch. Not only that, but it's also a fun adventure film about a witch getting out into the world. A must-see for kids and adults alike. This film is the directorial debut of Yoshifumi Kondo, who is the animation director for some of Miyazaki's works. Unfortunately, this would also be his only directed movie since he passed away a few years ago after the film's release. Kondo should be very proud of his work because this film is brilliant. This film is a touching slice of life story about a junior high school, Shizuki, who wants to be a writer and believes she's never good enough with her creativity despite what her friends and family say. She meets a very talented boy named Sanji who inspires her creativity and encourages her to follow more of her passion. The chemistry between these two is genuine. You could feel by the end that these two were made for each other. It also discusses the struggles that many artists may have with believing that they're not good enough and them gaining inspiration. A lot of sequences involving Shizuku expressing her creativity using her cat character she put in her story and flying around. The animation, of course, always looks beautiful. You could tell Kondo's creativity really shines in this film. Also, I love the rendition of Country Road Take Me Home in this movie. I wish I could play it, but I know YouTube will have a fit with me if I do, and I do not want to take any kind of risk. But overall, this is just a great film that I highly recommend you check out, especially if you are the very creative type. When Marnie Was There is a great coming-of-age story. While it wasn't made by Hayao Miyazaki, it was made by Hiromasa Yanibayashi, the key animator for Miyazaki's films and the director of another Studio Ghibli film, The Secret World of Ariadne. This film is very touching, and even some moments at the end could get some people very teary-eyed. The animation, once again, is gorgeous. It feels like Yanibayashi was using similar art style of Miyazaki. The lighting, the textures, the colors, the movements are all wonderfully handled. The characters are wonderful as well. Anna is a girl who is seen as an introvert who spends the summer with her aunt and uncle when she comes across a mansion on the side of a marsh, and there she meets a mysterious blonde-haired girl named Marnie, and the two become friends. Anna is a shy and awkward girl who is going through a lot with the loss of her parents and has no friends before meeting Marnie. You can understand her struggles, and it's something that maybe some kids can relate to. Marnie is a great character, and she may seem perfect at first, but even she has her own struggles and issues going on. There is a major secret about her, but I don't want to spoil it since I want you to see this movie. I like how the film has also a mysterious tone to it, and you don't know a whole lot about Marnie until the end. But overall, this is just a great watch for kids and adults to enjoy. It's smart, beautiful, heartwarming, and I would recommend it for kids and adults alike. Tale of the Princess Kaguya is an excellent piece of cinema. It's considered Isao Takahata's magnum opus and the last film he ever worked on before his untimely death in 2018. First of all, the animation is a lot different than what Studio Ghibli is used to, and I mean that in a good way. Instead of the anime style, it uses a more traditional hand-drawn kind of style where the colors are more limited and the lines are more thicker and more visible. Also, like the characters in this movie. I love the main character, Princess Kaguya, or Little Bamboo as she was called as a child. She grew up in a farm style, then suddenly became royalty due to her father finding gold from the bamboo she was born in. And yes, she was born from a piece of bamboo. It was also interesting backstory about how she was originally from the moon and was exiled to Earth after she broke the laws of the moon gods and was sentenced to live a mortal life on Earth, which is what she wanted. I also like how she doesn't want to act like a true princess and even said if a true princess cannot have emotions, sweat, laugh, or even smile, then a true princess is not human. I like the other characters too. They were very interesting and have their own personality. I do like the parents that went from poor farmers, then let wealth go to their heads. Of course, everything about this movie is just brilliant to me. And it honestly sucks that this had to lose the Best Animated Feature category to an overrated Disney musical. Ugh. But overall, this film is still definitely worth watching, especially if you're a Studio Ghibli fan. I'm pretty sure some hardcore Studio Ghibli fans will crucify me for not having this at my number one. Don't let its placement fool you. I absolutely adore adore this film, and it is truly a spectacular piece of animation. I'll explain why it's my number 2 when I get to my number 1. Let me praise this movie first. The animation, of course, is incredible like always. The voice acting all around is just spectacular. Everyone does a great job portraying their characters. I also love its heavy uses of Japanese Shinto Buddhist folk tales with the use of a world run by spirits, or kamis as they are called. It also has a lot of fantasy elements in it. Chihiro stumbles into a different world than her own where spirits are real. It's almost like an anime version of Alice in Wonderland. The characters are all very interesting and have their own personality. I can't think of one that I didn't like. They are all unique in their own ways. I also love a lot of the touching moments and moments where the visuals explain the scenario without being force-fed down the audience's throat. My favorite scene is where Chihiro is riding the train with the spirit No-Face and they do not say anything. This is a calm and melancholy scene where the audience breathes and takes in the time to stop the story to reflect the emotions of the characters. What more can I say about this film? It is widely considered as Miyazaki's magnum opus by so many people, and for good reason. While I still wouldn't say it was my number 1 favorite, it is still a spectacular film that needs to be seen by kids and adults alike. Even if you're not into anime, I would say go check it out, but let's face it, more than likely you've already have. Now, before I get to my number 1, let me give some quick honorable mentions. Studio Ghibli films that just missed being in my top 10, but are still worth checking out. Out of all of Miyazaki's work, I consider Princess Mononoke to be my absolute favorite of his, and one of my favorite films of all time. I know many people say that his best one is still Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro, or hell, even House Moving Castle, even though I think that one's overrated, but to me, Princess Mononoke trumps them all. Of course, just like with any other Studio Ghibli film, the animation is wonderful between the lighting, the colors, and the movements of the characters. The voice acting is phenomenal, and the musical score is very well composed. The action scenes may be a little too intense, especially for a PG-13 rating with arms and limbs being just torn off. But despite the fact that it's a Miyazaki film and a Studio Ghibli film, it's not a kid's movie. I can understand if you're looking for a Miyazaki film that is kid-friendly, something like My Neighbor Totoro or Kiki's Delivery Service. But this is a different kind of Studio Ghibli film. In terms of story-wise, it may seem like your stereotypical saving the environment kind of story. However, this movie doesn't say that one side is better than the other. The main character, Ashitaka, has been afflicted with a curse after battling a demon that has nearly attacked this village and went on search for a cure. While there, he notices a conflict between a town for mines for iron and crafts weapons and a wolf clan led by San, aka Princess Mononoke. However, Ashitaka has to take a peaceful route to resolve the conflict without violence because the curse, while it makes him more powerful in strength, kills him faster. It is a story about resolving matters peacefully and understanding both sides, rather than them being a good side and a bad side. Even the villain, quote unquote, Eboshi, is not really a villain, but rather a leader that will think only of her people and will do whatever it takes for their survival. She doesn't fight on her own selfish needs like many environmental saving movies or anti-prejudice movies do. Now, you might be wondering, why is this number one, especially over movies like Spirited Away? Well, it's mainly because while yes, Spirited Away is objectively a better put together film, and I could definitely see why so many people would prefer that over this, Princess Mononoke is the film that got me to love anime in the first place. Remember, I saw this movie before I saw Spirited Away. It tells me that anime can just be more than just mindless entertainment for kids. It could be more serious, it could be more adult, it could take greater risk, it can immerse its audience in the rich mythology of the worlds they create. Without this movie, I wouldn't be as invested into anime as I am today. Princess Mononoke is simply a masterpiece. This is one I definitely recommend to anyone watching. Not only is Princess Mononoke my favorite Studio Ghibli film, it is my favorite movie of all time, period. And that's it for my favorite Studio Ghibli films of all time list. Share in the comments what your favorite Studio Ghibli film is. Also, stay tuned on the 9th of December, where me and my friends from the Cool Kids channels will be reviewing The Boy and the Heron. Until then, have a good day.